Hi, I think I'm live. Hi, my name's Sarah and I work for Earthwatch, and I'm here today as part of the Naturehood live series. So this is a big shout out to everyone in the Naturehood in Oxford and in Swindon and wherever you may be around the country. I'm here to tell you a little bit about Naturehood and what it's all about, and to give you a guided tour of my garden here in Oxfordshire, and hopefully give you some ideas and inspirations for things that you can do. So for those of you who have heard of, I'm branded, there we go, Naturehood. Naturehood is a community project with wildlife at its heart, and Earthwatch has been championing this project for the last couple of years. And basically what it involves is people taking action for wildlife and doing it collectively in their communities to have a greater impact on the wildlife that's around us. And what we're asking you to do, and we'll do a big shout out to you if you haven't done it already, is to visit our website, naturehood.uk, and sign up and map out your nature space and tell us all about the positive actions that you're doing for wildlife. Now, the current situation we're in means that quite a lot of us are spending time in our homes and our gardens. And if you're anything like me, it's given you sort of a chance to kind of really think about how you use your outside space, and also spend some time looking at the wildlife that uses it. So what I'm going to do here is give you the kind of insider skinny really in terms of a garden that works for wildlife and also for humans. And for me, humans means teenage boys. So hopefully give you some ideas that it's possible to combine the two. So I will give you a bit of a guided tour. So one of the things that we created a couple of years ago was our wildlife pond, which I'm going to attempt to show you now. Just bear with me. So there we go. And this we set up about 2 years ago. It's quite a small pond, and it basically had to fit into a space in the corner of the garden, so that the majority of the lawn could be left free for football. So in an ideal world, we wouldn't have put the pond in under a tree, but we're making the most of the space that we've got. We put it in last year, and in that time we know we've definitely got newts, we've definitely got frogs. I think I found a caddisfly larva the other day, and we've definitely had our first red dragonflies, which I can't remember which one they are, but it's nice, a beautiful small red dragonfly visited last week. So it's doing its job. Great thing about ponds as well is it's not just about the creatures that live in them, but also those that use them to drink. So we've been able to watch a lot of the birds, particularly the blackbirds. I don't know why, it's those that I've noticed popping along to the edge of the pond to get their daily take of water. And what we made sure when we built the pond was that it had some sloping edges, so it's easy for different animals to get into and out of if necessary. And we've also tried to plant native species. We're lucky that not far from here there's an amazing aquatic centre that supplies native plants, so that we know that the kind of animals that we want to attract for our pond are going to like the plants that are here. So yeah, that's one of the first things that we did to our garden. As I said, we've, as you can see there, that's the football-proof fencing that we've had to put in to make sure that the football doesn't spend more time in there than it should do. The next thing that we did, again thinking about wildlife but also for aesthetics, for what we liked, was to put in a hedge. So behind me you can see it's a beech hedge. So it's not quite the varied hedgerow that you might get in the countryside, but it certainly provides a lot of shelter, and it's quite pretty to see as well. And I don't know if we can see, but there's already been one nest. I'm going to see if I can get in there. If you can see in there, the blackbirds in particular quite like using it as a nest. What we've also made sure is that there are gaps, so we've put like a mesh behind it to give us a bit more protection when the trees aren't in leaf, but we've put gaps in at the very bottom to make sure that we've got space for wildlife to come in if it needs to. And we know we've definitely had hedgehogs because we've seen the hedgehog poo in the lawn, so that's quite a nice one. In terms of other bits and pieces, as you can see, I'll stand this way round. There you go. There is quite a lot of lawn, and that's mainly to keep the teenage humans happy. If you can see behind me, I think there we go, the football post, which gets a lot of use. So we've tried to kind of keep our wildlife where we can, kind of around the edges. And we've, where we can, we've put in native species. So the tree behind the pond that you saw earlier, that one there, that's a field maple. So we've got some kind of native one there. And we've put in, well, it's quite a very brave silver birch, which is just there, which has so far survived the football. So that's doing fine. But we've also got kind of a whole range of other sort of shrubs and plants and bits and pieces that are good for wildlife generally, and they're pretty. So we've been lucky. There's a beautiful ceanothus we have here, which is just there, which has been absolutely buzzing with life over the last few weeks, really, and has come into its own. But then we've also got other shrubs which I couldn't even begin to tell you what they were, but they're pretty, and they've got flowers which we definitely know the pollinators are using. So again, it's just being a bit sensible, really, and putting flowers in where we can. We've got the tiniest veg patch in the world, partly because we used to have an allotment, as with a lot of people. It was a great ambition to plant lots of veg, but the reality of kids and life and work meant that we weren't actually able to do much about it. But we do have the world's smallest allotment now. And very sadly, I don't know if the rest of you were the same, but we had a really heavy frost, not last night, the night before. So my courgettes are looking not so happy these days. So there we go. We've got some kind of we've got some shrubs. We've got a couple of fruit trees actually. We've got a pear. Again, I'm hoping the frost didn't damage this one too much. But again, it gives us some fruit, and the fruit that we don't like, kind of all the wasps and the buzzing things seem to eat happily. And we've got the world's most difficult fruit bush to pick, which is this one, which is a gooseberry bush, which I absolutely love. But yeah, you kind of end up damaging half of your hands in order to get that. So we've tried to keep a range of different plants in the garden that basically kind of either attract the pollinators, the bees, the butterflies. We saw a red-tailed bumblebee here the other day, and we've also seemed to do really well for hoverflies. So I'm not quite sure which particular plants they like the most, but they're happy to be here. The one thing I was hoping to show you, but actually they've gone very quiet, is at the beginning of lockdown, so kind of end of April, our lawn was absolutely buzzing with some kind of mining bee. These sort of beautiful grey black bees, which were making holes all over the lawn, and were all in and out of the flowers and in the flower bed. And it was just fantastic to just kind of watch the level of activity. And they've gone quiet now, so I can but think that they've done what they needed to do, and they've moved on. But again, I think had we not been at home during kind of lockdown, we probably wouldn't have had the time to kind of stand around and kind of look at them. So actually, speaking of lawns, as I've said, I've just seen a sparrow go into a sparrow box. I might have to wait a minute and show you that one in a minute. We have a kind of an interesting regime with our lawn. So because the boys use it constantly for football or running around or rugby or whatever it is they're playing, we've got quite a lot of bare patches. So the need to kind of mow it within an inch of his life isn't really there. But what we've tried to do is leave little sort of pockets of it. So under one of the trees here, I'll kind of show you down there. There are some areas we don't mow quite as much, so that gives things, particularly like daisies, to sort of come out. And similarly over the other side of the garden, where there's sort of an area around quite a large bush, we've just kind of extended that area and left it. There is a project, a promotion that's happening at the moment, which is No Mow May, and we've tried to do that by kind of leaving bits of the garden and just kind of see what kind of wildlife comes up. But yeah, we certainly get daisies, we get buttercups and clover. I think we've had a bit of self-heal come up before. So basically, it's just about not kind of mowing, over mowing, and kind of leaving the spaces that you can. Now, I did mention, and it's gone now, that we had there was a sparrow in the sparrow box. So we've gone a bit sort of bird box mad in our house. Let me turn this way, and then you can see up on the back of the house. So we've got 1, 2, 3 single bird boxes and a sort of sparrow terrace. And what's been brilliant about those is I think all of those are ones that have been handmade. So Stanley, my 12-year-old, helped me build the terrace a few weeks ago, and that's gone up. And the other two have been fantastic projects for any kind of any budding teenager to kind of get involved with and kind of make from scratch. And all of them have got some kind of bird in them. Sparrows seem to be quite popular here at the moment, and we've got another little bird box that's hiding next to the garage. I don't know if you can see. There we go. And that one is a particular favourite with the blue tits. I think partly because it's kind of tucked away slightly. It's kind of in the eaves of the garage. It's behind a small, I think it's a buddleia tree, and it just gives them a bit more protection, I think. And that's probably one of the things that is kind of useful to think about when you're putting kind of bird boxes or things like that up. Obviously the ones up on the side of the house are quite high, so nothing can get to them there. The one that's a bit more accessible, which is kind of under the garage, we've given a bit more kind of protection and sort of tucked it away a bit. Actually, I don't know if you can see. I'll try and send it up if I can see this now. There we go. So that particular sparrow box, you can see that something's kind of eaten around the edge of the hole to try and get into it, and we weren't sure what was going on there, and then we realised last summer that basically the woodpeckers, sadly, they are beautiful birds to have. However, they also quite like eating the young of other birds. So last year I think we lost one of the sparrow broods because the woodpeckers basically made the hole huge, and they got themselves into there. Unfortunately, I think we have got another sparrow living in it now, so hopefully the woodpeckers will stay away, but we'll see. Now, what else was I going to talk about? Oh, yes, so we've done a couple of extra things in the garden, I suppose, to help wildlife and to make life interesting for us. So we have quite an unusual looking shed, which I think you can see kind of there, which is actually a repurposed sauna, which clearly we had no need for. And what we've done on the roof, although you can't see from here, is we've made it as a turf roof. So again, giving an opportunity to try and find other bits of wildlife and give plants a chance to survive up there. We've got quite a few of the sedums, so maybe some of those plants that like a bit more of a dry climate, and they're up there. I think at the moment only the pigeons, the birds, and a few random squirrels kind of appreciate it, but we kind of know that it's there. I guess the other thing about our garden is that it's not that tidy. We kind of believe in kind of leaving some of the messy spaces. Certainly don't kind of tidy up around kind of plants and trees. So like you can see here, it's just around kind of letting nature do its thing, where you don't need to tidy up, leave it alone. We've kind of managed to, I was just thinking this combination here is quite funny. So we've got the kind of the football goal, and then we've got the compost bin behind it. So it's around kind of making it work for you, enabling you to kind of fit in your One of the things I wish we had more of was kind of large trees. So when we moved in here, sort of 10, 15 years ago, there weren't any trees at all in the garden. So the field maple, which you've seen there, which is actually quite big now, we only planted that about 10 years ago. So that's grown brilliantly. This here is a non-native. It's a sort of purple smoke bush, but actually it's brilliant for hanging birds, bird food on. Actually, they need topping up. Actually, we've got some very active birds around here, so it is something that we like to do. We buy our bird seed in bulk from the garden centre, and luckily I'd stocked up before all this happened, and we kind of go through quite a lot of bird seed during the month. It's coming into a season now where you probably don't need to feed them quite so much. Obviously, what we really wanted to do is to make sure, as the birds were arriving, ready to think about sort of breeding, we wanted to make sure there was lots of opportunities for them to sort of stock up on energy. But we still like doing it because basically we like having the birds in the garden. We tend to put a kind of a mixed seed out, some peanuts, and then we've got the Niger seeds, which are the ones that the goldfinch like. And the goldfinch are absolute joy to see. They're that little sort of streaks of gold floating around the garden, so it's great to have those. I think in an ideal world we'd like to try and find somewhere to put maybe a swift box. I absolutely love it when we get the visitors over, and we've probably seen swifts and swallows now for the last couple of weeks down here, which is great to see. But realistically, we haven't probably got quite the right location or size house for that. But this is the kind of thing where you could kind of encourage people that you know that live locally who maybe did have more appropriate housing. Maybe they've got a barn or something, or a big garage, or a big expense that they can add something onto. That's where actually working in partnership with people in your local community can make a real difference. So you can't necessarily have everything in your garden, but there might be somebody who can. Certainly, when I mentioned the holes for hedgehogs earlier, that works even better if you can persuade some of your neighbours to do the same thing, and then you know that you've got this kind of amazing kind of avenue of exploration that hedgehogs can take around all the gardens near you. What else have we got here? I mean, we tend to have quite a few pots and bits and pieces around as well. Oh, I can hear neighbours. How exciting. So outside the front of the house, we've got, there you go. We've got a range of pots and plants in those. I think there's some strawberries and some raspberries in there as well. We kept them separately, partly to try and keep the slugs away. To be honest, I don't know about you, we planted loads of sunflowers and bits and pieces which seem to have been happily munched by something. So I think the fact that I have planted something like 42 sunflowers means that hopefully at least maybe 2 or 3 of them will grow. But the downside, obviously, of the pots is that they need a bit more. They need a bit more water, and so what we've done, one of the first things again we did was we added a. There we go. We've added a water butt to our garden, just to make sure that if we want to kind of look after what we plant and what we do, that we don't always have to use the water from the tap to do that. We've been really lucky since we had all the extra rain. We've actually been topping up our pond as well with water from the water butt, just to make sure that all the kind of the animals that thrive there get what they need. So hopefully that's given you some kind of ideas and inspirations about how you can balance a garden for both kind of wildlife and family. We wanted to make sure we had enough outside space, that there was enough place to run around. We'll kind of sit out here and have breakfast or lunch, so we needed some spaces for that. We put in this quite a nice, there we go, quite a nice little bench, and what we did with that was we found the spot that the sun sort of stays with last in the evening, and then that kind of gives you a kind of nice space to admire your garden from. But it is possible. There's only so much kind of don't kick the football into the flowers that you can say, but I think what we've discovered is that the flowers and plants that survive are the ones that are most robust, and often that's the compromise. Is maybe some of the delicate plants don't happen, or maybe the delicate plants are the ones that you put in the pot slightly out of the way. But things like bird feeders and bird tables and all the bird boxes are great activities that you can get the rest of the family involved in, and you kind of shouldn't underestimate the value of giving kids those kind of projects to do and to get involved with. We've got ourselves a hedgehog box kit, so that's going to be one of the next tech projects, I think, during lockdown, and we'll find somewhere to put it and we'll make it work. And then, that hopefully we'll continue to enjoy the garden in the way that we're doing once lockdown is over. I think one of the first things that we'd like to do is we've got some neighbours with quite small gardens who wanted some help about what they might do. And I think the idea of kind of talking about connectivity for hedgehogs, or even getting them to put up some more bird feeders, will make this a real pocket for wildlife that they want to come and visit. So again, hope you've had some ideas and inspiration. Thinking about you can make a garden work for teenagers and for wildlife, and actually there's a lot out there for you to kind of explore and find out more about. So thank you for listening. Again, if you haven't already thought about joining Naturehood, then visit our website and log in for some, and you'll find some more ideas, activities and inspirations for things to do there. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm wearing a hoodie now. I was wearing a t-shirt earlier. I think we've got one of those sort of changeable weather things going on. But yeah, thank you for watching, and enjoy Naturehood and enjoy your space. Bye for now.